Alright, now we're going to look at how to make an object. Alright, the first thing that we'll see whenever we make an object, in this case I'm going to call this one print format. So this is the class that we're going to call. So let's first make that class here, and we're going to call it print format. Right, so we've got our class then. So that's what we're going to call them. We then get an identifier, so I'm going to just use the console again, is equal to new, and then we get to the constructor. Alright, so we now need to set up a constructor. At this point, we can use this, or can't really do anything with it, because if we go to print format, we'll see there's nothing inside there. So first we need to make our constructors. So a constructor is this part here. And we can see that we've got brackets over there. Those brackets mean we can put parameters into it. So firstly, with any constructor, let's just do constructors. We just use the keyword public and the name of the class with brackets and close it. So that is just an empty constructor that allows us to make the object here. And so we have technically created something. We can use this now, although as I say, it's not going to do anything. Then we get to the beauty of constructor overloading. Now constructor overloading means we have the same thing here, but depending on what's in our parameter space, so inside those brackets, will allow us to do different things. So we can make another one, once again, name, but now we can actually put in parameters that need to change, or different parameters that will change different settings. So for example, we can put int, I'm just going to call this W, it's going to set the width. Alright, so we need to now have a field that will set this actual width. So let's put here, we've got our fields, and basically these are just some of the settings for this particular class or object. Alright, fields, we don't really want to have access from outside of the class. And so we give them the access modifier private. This means only things inside this print format class can actually access it. If we want to access it from outside, we'll need to set up getters and setters, which we will look at in a second. So I'm going to call this then console width. And so this is just going to be the amount of lines that we're going to print, or yeah, the amount of characters that can fit in one line on this console. I'm going to start it with a standard setting of 16, so that's just the default. When we need to change that later, and this is also int, forgot about that one. Alright, so if we call the constructor here, so just this print format, we'll see here that this is now set to 16 because we're not changing that value. But we can change that value then and put in a console width is now equal to whatever we put in W. And so if we now just use that, or use this constructor, it'll be set to 16. If we actually put a value in here, it'll set console width to something. Now let's just make our getters and setters quickly. The proper name for these should be getters, would be accessors, and for setters is mutators. Yeah, spelling. Okay, mutator. Whatever, it doesn't like that. Okay, so let's just actually get rid of those spelling. I can't spell the word, so I'm not going to put it in there. Alright, that's not the point, but yeah. So we've got this console width. Now we need a method to actually access it or to set it, and that's the whole point of these things. if we've set it here through the constructor, then we want to change it later, we can then use our getters and setters. Now, NetBeans has an awesome feature where if we just type in get and control space, it actually gives us an option to generate a getter. And so you can see there's our getter set up. All that a getter is a public, a return type. In this case it's an int because console width is an int, and we get that. We can also then do the setter, same thing, set console width, and the point here is we're then going to put in a new value if we want to change it, and it'll then access the object. That's what this keyword means, is that we're getting this specific object that we've created. We're going to change that console width and that. Now, just because we can see now it's got console width, that's why this is there. To make sure that that's not a problem, we can just change this to CW and that then to CW, just so it doesn't get confusing. Okay, so that's our console width. Now, we can go even further with that. We can set our default character for the borders. So in this case I'm going to use char for that, and this is going to be console symbol. And I'm going to just use pipe as the initial one, or default, and we can change that later. So if we use this constructor, we're just using these default values. If we use that constructor, we're changing that. And now we can take it even further. We can make another constructor that allows us to then change the width and then change the symbol. And so this will then be S. Right, so we got console width is equal to W, console symbol is equal to S. Right, so basically this allows us then to do 3 different things depending on what parameters we put into there. The last one that I want to put here is called padding, but we will only use it later. And I'm going to set it to 4 now, just as that's the standard width of a tab. So one more. I can see there I've just copied that one, because all we're doing here now is we're going to put in an int with padding and an option then to say console padding is equal to P. Okay, so I'm just going to make a quick method that we can use just to check these different settings. So this method I'm going to call line, and it's going to be a public void. All that this does is it's going to print it from within, and so it's called public void line. We don't need any parameters, and what it's going to do is, depending on the width that we've set here, it's going to print out a bunch of the symbol that we've set over there. Alright, so we're just going to then say SOP. We don't want to put a new line, and we're going to print console symbol, and for amount of times equal to console width. When we're done with it, then we just want to end the line so that we can carry on afterwards. And that'll then just print a simple line for us. Okay, so we've got 4 different methods, 4 different constructors, and a single method called line that we will get to in a second. So we go back to our standard one. So you can see here we've got this first one called console. I'm going to call this console A just to differentiate it. So if we call console A dot line and we print it, we see it's going to print then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 values. 16 values with the symbol being pipe. Alright, now we can take this a step further. Because we have these different constructors over here, we can now change, say, the width. So if I make a new constructor, format, I'm going to call this console B is equal to new print format, and we're only using the constructor that has the width. So if we put now 24, that means it's going to access only this one because it matches a single integer input. If we then put an integer and a char, it'll match that constructor, and if we put two integers and a char, it'll match that constructor. And it also needs to be in those positions or those places. So if we now print our console B and the line there, we'll notice that now prints, that one was 16, that's 24. We can take this even further now, because we have another constructor that allows us to change the symbol. We can now set up the symbol here, making print format console C. And let's make this 12 long, but using the symbol octothorpe or hashtag. And we'll have console C dot line. Right, so we can see that's 16 with the default. That's 24 with the default symbol. And because we've now in this constructor put both the symbol and the width, we're going to print 12 hashtags. Alright, so that's the basics with constructors.